Merry Christmas, everyone. I'm so glad you're here today as we wrap up our Advent series called Past, Present, Future, where so far, through a fun connection to the classic story A Christmas Carol, we've discussed the past promises of God, the present presence of Jesus, and today we'll turn our attention to future hope. Now, I have to confess that I think we did this series 1 year too early because I just found out that before Christmas 2026, a new version of A Christmas Carol starring Johnny Depp is being released. I mean, we should have waited for Jack Sparrow to play Ebenezer Scrooge to do this series. That's on me, I apologize. Which, by the way, there are hundreds of different versions of this story. I shared previously that I grew up on the Mickey Mouse version, and a lot of you had some very strong opinions about the Muppets version. There's also the version where Bill Murray is Scrooge, but he's also not Scrooge. There are just so many different tellings of this Christmas classic. And I get it, like what more could you want from a Christmas story? There's a mean dude whose life gets completely changed for the better, a family that is struggling that gets cared for, and there's ghosts, 4 different ghosts. Did you know that A Christmas Carol actually inspired the movie Ghostbusters? No? Well, that's because it's not true. I just made that up to make sure you're paying attention still. But it is a classic story about a man, Ebenezer Scrooge, who is confronted with his greed when he's visited on Christmas Eve by the ghosts of Christmas past, Christmas present, and Christmas yet to come. And maybe it's not everyone's favorite story, but it is powerful nonetheless. And it carries even more meaning when you recognize why Charles Dickens wrote it. You see, Dickens was a bit of an activist. He wasn't attempting to write a cute holiday tale. He was trying to wake people up. He wanted a society that had grown numb to suffering to notice the people right in front of them again. He wanted people to understand that to neglect the poor, especially children, was to rob them of their future. He wanted readers to feel the possibility that the world could change, which is why it's such a timeless tale, because that same numbness can happen in any culture, in any era. You see, Charles Dickens wanted people to rediscover hope. So he wrote a story that felt familiar on the surface, but underneath it, it was a radical vision of a different future. A future where hearts are softened, where generosity overrides greed, where communities are restored, and where the poor are seen and valued. And where even someone as grumpy as Ebenezer Scrooge can become new. And one thing I want us to pick up on today is that what Dickens did with fiction, the gospel writers in the Bible do with truth. Because the gospels announce the true future of hope that God has already begun. They take a story we think we know, a baby in a manger, angels singing, shepherds running, and then reveal, if we're paying attention, that this isn't just a story about the past. It's a story about the future breaking into the present. A story announcing that God's tomorrow is already interrupting our today. And Christmas Eve of all nights invites us to feel that interruption. So, for just a few minutes, I want to encourage you to allow some gospel interruption today. An interruption that centers on what God is already doing. There are 4 different gospels written by 4 different people, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And each author approaches the story of Jesus in a different way. To understand why Christmas is more than a memory, I want us to listen to how John tells it. He begins his gospel with the birth of Jesus, but he does it in a way no movie has ever tried. There's no stable, no Mary or Joseph, no census, no inn, no donkey, no drummer boy. By the way, I've never understood the drummer boy thing. Like literally, one of the lyrics from that song is, "Little baby pa-rum-pa-pum-pum," because that's what any mom would want in the delivery room right after giving birth. Some boy just bashing on a drum. Doesn't make any sense. Instead, John zooms the camera all the way out, way past Bethlehem, past creation itself. He writes, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." And then a handful of verses later, he writes, "And the Word became flesh and lived among us." John is telling us that this isn't just the story of a baby being born. This is the story of God's eternal future stepping into time. It's not nostalgia that we gather around tonight. It's not just some sweet moment in history. This is the moment When the creator of the universe says, I'm not standing off to the side. I'm jumping in. I'm not giving up on creation. I'm joining it. I'm not distant. I'm right here. John is saying Christmas is not just something that happened in the past tense. No, it's something that is happening, even still right now. God's future is still pressing into the present. Light is still pushing back the darkness. Love is still breaking open the impossible. A new world is still being born. And I think this is the piece that we can so easily forget. Christmas is not escapism. Christmas is not distraction. Christmas is not pretending that everything is okay. No, Christmas is God insisting that the world can be different. And God is starting that work through Jesus, who steps into the very messy, complicated, confusing reality that we still live in today. And that's the picture John is painting from the 30,000-foot view. But if we go to Luke's version of the same story, we get the perspective from the ground floor. In Luke chapter 2, the version of the story that perhaps feels more familiar to many of you, the stable, the manger, the angels, the shepherds. But even Luke wants us to see that something unusual is happening here. The story begins in Luke 2 with Caesar Augustus issuing a decree, which is Luke's way of saying that the empire is in control. The world is not gentle, power is not kind. Mary and Joseph, they're not traveling because they want a baby moon in Bethlehem. They're traveling because the government forced them to. They're swept up in politics, poverty, and exhaustion before Jesus ever takes his first breath. And yet, in the middle of a world like that, God shows up. Not in the palace, not with the elites, not through military strength, but in a stable, with animals, with a teenage girl, and a young blue-collar carpenter. And if you've ever felt overlooked or out of place or like you don't quite fit, this part of the story is for you. See, God doesn't start with the people who seem most impressive. God starts with the people who are usually unseen. The poor, the lonely, those who are new to a place or far from home, those without stable housing, those who feel far from faith. Christmas is God moving toward the edges and calling people in. Look at verse 6 of chapter 2. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born. And she, Mary, gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. Now, why is this the way? Why did God choose this way? Well, I think it's because God is making a point. Hope does not begin in perfect conditions. Hope begins right where you are, right in the unplanned parts of life, right in the places you feel small, right in the circumstances you didn't choose. The birth of Jesus is a declaration that God's future is already moving toward us. And Dickens, in A Christmas Carol, declares this reality through a child. This is why my favorite line from A Christmas Carol is so powerful. The character Bob Cratchit says this about his youngest son, Tiny Tim, who also has a crippling illness. Bob says, somehow Tim gets thoughtful, sitting by himself so much. And he thinks the strangest things you've ever heard. He told me coming home that he hoped the people saw him in the church because he was a cripple. And it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see. Now, why does Tim's dad think that he says the strangest things? I think it's because Tiny Tim is aware of his limitations and the world's brokenness, maybe more than anyone else in the story. But he still has hope. You know, hope looks strange when everything else looks bleak. And Tiny Tim is filled with it because he believes something about Jesus. He believes Jesus is the one who sees people like him. He believes Jesus is the one who heals. He believes Jesus is the one who brings a future where no one is forgotten and no one is worthless. And you know, as I read the story, I don't think he's trying to be inspirational. I think he's trying to remind people on Christmas of all days that Jesus came to make all things new. That's why when Dickens finally lets Scrooge see Tiny Tim, something shifts. Scrooge realizes he isn't just looking at a child, he's looking at a future that could flourish or perish depending on the choices he makes. I love that hope always invites us into that kind of clarity. It always asks us, what future are you participating in right now? Are your actions moving the world toward love or away from it? And we don't answer that question just in our massive decisions. We answer it in the small stuff. Because sometimes the clearest way to see what future we're participating in is to pay attention to those small, ordinary moments of our lives. The ones that don't look spiritual at all, but somehow reveal things you weren't even looking for. Let me show you what I mean from a moment that didn't feel that spiritual in our lives. Over Thanksgiving break, my mom announced that we were doing our Christmas photos at the beach this year. So we get down to the beach and immediately my two boys and my nephew sprint off in different directions as if we just released them back into the wild. Before the photographer could even introduce herself, the boys and Amanda were already building a sandcastle, so sand was covering every part of them, and within minutes the castle got boring and the two little boys were suddenly soaked in salt water, even though we had said at least 10 times, do not go near the water. The photographer was a saint. She was patiently doing her best to capture calm amid the chaos. My mom was shouting instructions that the wind kept stealing and no one could hear. My dad can't hear a thing anyway, so he was just staring up at the clouds. Jericho was hungry. Zacchaeus was miserable because his clothes were soaked, his fault. And at one point, I looked around at the absolute pandemonium and thought, this is a disaster. We're not gonna get one usable photo and my mom is gonna make us redo this entire thing. But a few days later, the pictures came back and you know what? They looked incredible. Like freakishly good considering what was happening behind the scenes. I mean, everyone looked calm and coordinated. Amanda looked stunning as always, but the destructive force that is Zacchaeus looked angelic. Jericho, the teenager, looked happy. I think I even looked a little thinner, like the photographer had performed some Christmas miracles. And as I stared at those photos, I remembered a line I had read somewhere before. It said, God comes to us disguised as our life. Which when you think about it is exactly what happened in Bethlehem. And precisely what I realized on that chaotic, sandy, windblown afternoon. That was our life. Messy, unpredictable, uncooperative, and yet somehow full of beauty that we didn't even realize we were living. See, hope wasn't hiding in the perfect poses. Hope was hiding right in the middle of the madness. God with us. And honestly, that's Christmas. We look at the chaos of our world, our families, our friendships, our schedules, our hearts, and we think, there is no way this can all come together. But God looks at that same world, the same mess, the same chaos, and says, I'm not done. Watch what I can do. Christmas is God stepping into the sand and wind and noise of our real lives. Not the filtered and staged version of our lives, but the actual ones. Because that's where hope is born. And that's what I mean when I say that God's tomorrow is already interrupting today. You know, hope is one of those words we throw around a lot in December. Like, I hope the flight isn't delayed. I hope my next paycheck stretches. I hope the kids sleep past 6. But the hope we read about throughout Scripture isn't optimism. I mean, optimism is choosing to see in any situation how circumstances could work out for the best. But biblical hope is not focused on circumstances. In fact, a lot of the folks we read about in Scripture have no evidence that things will get any better. Instead, when Old Testament writers write about hope, they are waiting, not on circumstances to improve, but on a person, on Jesus. When we get to the New Testament, these authors write about hope in reference to Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, proclaiming that the empty tomb opened a door of hope, to which the Apostle Paul called a living hope, where people can experience renewal and restoration, not just for folks then, but for all of creation from then on. You see, hope is the stubborn belief that God's future is already pressing into the present, that God is already renewing and restoring, which is something I fully believe. For example, in 1990, there were over 2 billion people living in extreme poverty. That number is around 831 million today. Before the year 1900, about half of all children died young. Today, around 96% of children worldwide survive till adulthood. People are living longer thanks to advances in medicine and public health. Literacy and education rates are higher than ever. Women are safer, more educated, and more empowered than at any point in history. When we say, "Oh, the world is going to hell in a handbasket," we risk missing the ways God is actually at work right now. Now, does that mean that everything is fine? Of course not. It isn't. There's still very real suffering, injustice, and brokenness all around us. But faith allows us to hold all three of these truths at the same time. The world is still deeply broken. The world is, in many ways, better than it's ever been. And the world can become even better as God's healing continues through us. That's why followers of Jesus Christ are here. God's kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Hope is recognizing that our lives can line up with God's future right now to make it better. And if I can get a little anecdotal for a second, one of my favorite things that happens through Cornerstone is our prison ministry. Just last week, our team sent me some correspondence from an inmate who's getting out in the next couple weeks. Well, in the letter, he talked about all the incredible work Jesus has done in his life while incarcerated. He wrote as someone who is experiencing reconciliation and restoration in real time, and can't wait to help make things better. My favorite line from his letter was this. He said, "Serving God out there will be something new to me, but it is going to be Jesus shining in me, through me, and all around me." You see, hope is not a feeling we wait for. Hope is a way of living. Hope is choosing to act as if light is stronger than darkness, that love is stronger than hate, even when the news cycle says otherwise. Hope is choosing generosity in a world that keeps telling you to hold tighter, that there's not enough. Hope is choosing forgiveness even when the wounds are real. Hope is choosing community when, frankly, isolation can feel safer. Hope is choosing to show up, to care, to give, to repair, to imagine, because we believe God is still at work reshaping the world. Hope is not escape, hope is participation. It is the belief that God is already moving history toward restoration. And we get to move our lives in that same direction. And that's what I believe Christmas Eve calls us to. Because when we see the world through Christmas eyes, through the lens of God's future breaking into the present, we begin to ask different questions. Instead of, what do I want out of life, we start asking, what kind of future is God calling me to participate in right now? Instead of, what do I need to protect, we start asking, well, what can I give, what can I release, or restore, or repair, or rebuild? Or the way we say it around Cornerstone, in any situation we find ourselves, we ask, what does love require of me? Christmas invites us to be people who embody hope, who live in such a way that others get a glimpse of the future God is creating. Are we living as though God really is present right here, right now, in the mess and the beauty of our lives? Look, you don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need the willingness to say, if God's future is breaking in, then I want to be part of it. Which brings us to many of our favorite part of Christmas Eve, and not just because I'm almost done talking. In a few seconds, we're gonna dim the lights and light our candles, and every year I'm reminded of a simple truth. Darkness fills an entire room until a single light appears. In John 1, verse 5, we read that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. See, in this text, John doesn't deny darkness. He just says darkness doesn't win. When we light candles on Christmas Eve, we are remembering that one small flame can push back a whole room of darkness. Just like every act of love matters, every step toward justice matters, every moment of compassion matters, every choice to hope matters, because the future that God is building, it's already underway. and we get the incredible opportunity to help God build it. So, as we light our candles, may you remember that you are part of this story. May your light remind the world of the one who made lame beggars walk and blind men see, the one who heals, restores, and brings peace. Remember, Christmas is not escape, it is God with us making all things new. So, Merry Christmas, Cornerstone. And as Tiny Tim would say, God bless us, everyone. Let's carefully light our candles in whatever space you find yourself in today, with others or on your own. Lift your voice and let's sing together across the miles and across the time zones, joining our hearts and spirits here in this space. I love you all so much.